Assalamu alaikum. So today we are gonna learn how to use the MySQL database with Python, how to connect to it, how to delete stuff, add stuff, create stuff, drop a database, create a database, drop in a table, describing it, getting data from it. All of that we are gonna learn in this tutorial, inshallah. So let's begin. The first thing I need to do again is to create a file that will hold that information from me, or the script that will connect basically to my server. So let's call it connect, or let's call it database script. Okay, database script.py. This is for Python, and I'm gonna launch this with my Sublime text. So the first thing I need to do is to import the module that's named mysql.connector as mydb. So this module is actually given for us or to us by the MySQL team that's built or made this database. Okay, so next thing I need to do is to create a connection using this mdb. So I'm not actually using this with this name, so this as keyword allowed me to use it as this variable. This is just another variable or a name or an alias for this mysql.connector module. So I need to use a method that's inside of this, which name is connect with the host as a parameter or an argument. The host should be local host, the user should be the root user, the password should be the TOOR for each and every one of you, and the database name should be okay. So we didn't create the database yet, so let's just print our connection to see if we successfully connected to the database. So if you have actually installed a MySQL database, you need to connect to it using this command in your terminal. So have this command in your terminal, hit enter, and it will actually start your MySQL server. Okay, so for me to test if I have successfully did that, I need to execute this. So mysql.connector connection have successfully connected. This shows us that we have successfully connected to the server, and what we need to do next is to create a database. So let's just have this in a function. Let's delete this print thing that we made sure we have connected exactly to that. So let's make this connect to DB or to server. Okay, and I'm gonna do this to the indentation. I'm gonna have the main function in this module as well, so we need to connect to the server at first. Next thing, I need to create a database. So create DB. First of all, I need to make this connection variable a global variable so I can access it from wherever I want in my script. So create DB will have to create a cursor for this one. So in order to create a variable called cursor, I need the connection.cursor method to create that for me. And for this, I'm gonna create another variable which will hold my query, and with that I'm gonna create or drop a database if exists, and this database should be YouTube tutorial. Okay, next thing, I need to execute this, but since I actually dropped this database before, it doesn't actually exist. I need to create database. Okay, so create database YouTube tutorial. we are gonna deal with the drop database after this one. So let's just have this executed. So cursor dot execute SQL. Okay, and for us to do this, we need to call it in this function, the main function. So create db. In order for us to execute all of this, the main function actually is not being executed until we use it with this parentheses. Okay, now we will connect to the server using this function, and we will create this global variable inside of this, so we can actually connect or create a cursor using that this connection. This SQL is just a variable that holds an SQL query, which will eventually get executed using the cursor right here. So let's save this, quit, and execute the database script. So we have an error, can't create database, YouTube tutorial, database exists. So we need a method to drop this database if it does exist. So let's create that method. So this method should be called drop database. Okay, we need to give it a cursor again. We need to create a cursor using the connection that we have, because this cursor helps us execute any command that we give to the database, and that command is being held in SQL variables or queries. Let's create another query or another string that has our query. This query should be drop database YouTube tutorial. Okay, this should be executed using the cursor execute command SQL. Okay, and connection dot commit to commit our changes with our connection. So before creating this database, I need to drop it. Okay, so drop database, to drop the database and create database to create this, and after this it's gonna be no errors after this. Okay, so there is no errors, that means we have successfully created our database. So anytime we execute this, our program does exactly these steps. It connects to the server, it drops the database if it does actually exist in there, and it creates the database. That means if I have to recall this again, it will drop the database, it will remove it or delete it from the server, and it will create it again. So let's comment this out to not drop it again, because we have actually used this just to prove that we have created the database. After this, I need to create a table in our database to save the data that we will get from the user. So let's create table. So we have create table. After this, I need a cursor, of course, to execute that. So we need to create it using the connection cursor method. I need to create an SQL query, whatever I need, or I like to call it, an SQL query that will have our tables structure. Okay, so to create a table, I need to specify it like this. This create table is a MySQL keyword, so create table, the name of the table for the profiles. Inside of here is our database structure, so we will have a person ID as a primary key. So let's have this as integer. It should not be null, and it will be auto increment, so I do not have to give it a comma in here. Auto increment comma, the next field should be first name, So the person ID is just a unique field that I have in my table for each and every profile. So 15 here, 50 characters, not null. Of course I need this last name, var character 50, it should not be null as well. The another one, the email, var character 255 for the email, not null of course. The email should exist and it's required in order to create a new profile. A var character for the home address should be 50 characters, it should not be more, and it should not be null as well. It might not be unique, but it should not be null. It should exist for each user. Two users can live in the same house, so the home address should not be null. So the origin also should not be null, and it's not specific for, or it's not unique for every user. So we are gonna need to specify the primary key for our table, which is the person ID in this one, because it's the only unique number or the only unique field that we can have in our database or in our profile. So with this I am gonna need an engine, or just if you do not know what this sentence means, actually you don't need to know it, or you are not required to know it because you are just a beginner. So it's just some engines and default characters in this one, GUITF general. Just this is for the sort of the characters that we are gonna use, or the user just gonna implement it. So you do not actually need to understand this line, just Google that in order for you to get more information about it. So we need to create a cursor for this one. Okay, we actually have created it, so let's just execute this. So cursor connection, or cursor execute SQL. Okay, after this I need to connection commit the changes to our server. Okay, so since actually we have created our database, this should not stay like this. I need to create a database, or I need to connect to YouTube tutorial from the start. Okay, and this should not be server anymore. I'm connecting to database, or to DB for short. Okay, connect to server should change to connect to DB. Save this, create database and create table. And I should not create a database, it actually does exist before. So, or let's just uncomment all of this to do the process all over from the start again. So it will create a connection, it will connect to the database, it will create the DB, it will drop the database. Okay, no, it will drop the database before creating the database and creating the table. Okay, so person ID. Okay. After this we need to create another function that will describe our table to see if it does exist. Okay, so describe table, we will create a cursor with the connection that cursor. I need to have an SQL that says describe table, or describe profiles is the name of our table, but I need to give it all uppercase. It's actually, my SQL actually is case insensitive, so I do not actually to give it this uppercase, but since you are just a beginner, you need to understand that this is a keyword, or this is a MySQL keyword. So describe there you have it. Describe MySQL or describe profiles is the name of our table. This is preferred to be this double or triple quotation marks. After this, I need to execute the SQL, and I need to have a result variable that will contain all the results from the cursor. So cursor fetch all, so for r in result print r. So let's change this to results. Okay, so describe table, I need to exit Python 3 database script. Okay, so no database selected. Database script. Okay, so I did use a database here, so why is it say? Okay, we did create a connection with the database and we did remove it, so we do not need to drop this out. Let's just say comment this out, comment the create database. And so in the previous thing we did, however, create the database, so we do not need that line. Okay, so MariaDB version over here. First thing, okay, we have an error in our, okay, it's not the main, it's the save database script. So we do have that in here. So create table profiles. Where is the error? Person ID not null. Auto increment. Okay, I saw it. Auto increment is the error. Okay, it's just a spelling mistake in here. And there you go, person ID, first name, last name, email, home address, and origin. So we successfully created our table.